alaikum and a very good morning to everyone. We are very honored today to have Honorable Congressman Steve Watkins with us this morning. He is a combat veteran who served in Afghanistan in 2004. He was also at the forefront of tabling Resolution 745 last year, which urges India to end the restrictions on communications and mass detentions in Jammu and Kashmir as swiftly as possible and preserve religious freedom for all residents. I would like to invite Congressman Watkins for his remarks, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and thanks for hosting the webinar. And I want to really show my appreciation for joining such an esteemed assembly of thought leaders and political leaders, not the least of which is the Chicago Consulate General of Pakistan to the United States, Mr. Umrani, and the President of Kashmir Council, Dr. Khan, and of course, Ambassador Khan, and the Deputy Chair of Conservative Party, Dr. Javed. So I, as it was said in the introduction, spent many years in conflict environments. I actually spent 8 years between Iraq and Afghanistan, both as a uniformed Army officer and as a defense contractor. And in those 8 years, I really just learned a few things. And one was that we must do everything that we can to fight human rights abuses. I carried that with me to the halls of Congress where I serve currently. Now, I believe that the true spirit of America is only upheld when we bond together and fight back against human rights abuses. And of course, the situation in Jammu and Kashmir is one that I find deeply, deeply concerning. We are very troubled about the reports that have included detentions, kidnappings, media blackouts, bans on social media, and the suppression of journalism. And most alarming is the restriction on the tools needed to fight the COVID pandemic. And while you may not always read about the U.S. policymakers working towards a positive end to this situation, I want to assure you that myself and many of my colleagues are working hard to draw attention to the current situation. It's important that the United States sends a message to the international community and to the government of India that these acts aren't going to be ignored and that the status quo will change. My team and I have worked tirelessly day and night to bring about action and make progress in the midst of a very partisan Congress, which requires the person who will go, it really requires a person who will go for Kashmir, both on the Republican side, my side, as well as the Democrat side. Sadly, I will, unfortunately, be replaced soon by an opponent, although I wish him well. He's got no interest in Jammu and Kashmir. But nevertheless, my team and my peers will work in Congress to increase visibility and conversation. What we have been able to accomplish so far is fantastic. In the 116th Congress, we've been working towards, as it was mentioned, HRES 745, and I've worked across the aisle with my colleague, Representative Jayapal, and we've made great progress on this piece of legislation. Not enough yet, but it continues down the legislative path. This resolution urges the Republic of India to end the restrictions on communications and mass detentions in Jammu and Kashmir as swiftly as possible and to preserve religious freedom for all residents. Since its introduction, my staff and I have dedicated hours to bringing this to the attention of my peers, of the media, and I'm proud to say that we currently have 63 co-sponsors, some 57 Democrats and 6 Republicans. So now we have the support to get the bill moving forward. Our next step is for this legislation to go through the markup phase in the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Our committee is very different and markups can be very difficult to secure, but with the help of Congresswoman Jayapal, my staff, and the committee staff, we've kept pressing the importance of this legislation to the ranking member of the committee and the chairman. While no guarantees have been made, we feel strongly that this legislation will enter the markup in the coming months. Legislation is critical, however, the situation in this sphere demands efficiency, something Congress tends to lack. To make sure that this does not slip between the cracks, my staff and I will keep in contact with the leadership of the Foreign Affairs Committee and also the leadership of the U.S. State Department Secretary Mike Pompeo, who happens to also be a fellow Kansan, West Pointer, and Harvard guy. So I know the secretary. I look up to him a great deal. We talk from time to time, bring up the human rights abuses that are so urgent and pressing. While we have firmly had our foot on the gas, a member of our community, grassroots communities, make as big a difference as me and my staff can. In that, I mean, I'd encourage all citizens to express their concern to their Congress members so that they can become co-sponsors of this important piece of legislation and we can get it through markup onto the floor and passed. It will be a seminal moment, and I am confident that that can happen perhaps in the 117th Congress. So with that, I just want to end on that bit of optimism and share with you that I'll never stop fighting for human rights abuses in Jammu, Kashmir, and anywhere it exists. Thank you.
Let me begin by, first of all, recognizing and acknowledging, as well as thanking Congressman Steve Watkins for his compassion, for his leadership, and for his initiative in becoming the voice of voiceless Kashmiris in one of the most important representative bodies of the world by being the principal sponsor of the resolution that seeks to highlight the atrocities being committed against unarmed Kashmiri civilians, together with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. And I must say that in that regard, US Congress has been a leader in the sense that I think US Congress and House of Representatives is perhaps the only body in the world where they actually convened two specifically focused hearings on Kashmir. Both the Lantos Commission as well as the subcommittee of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. We are also heartened to see that concern still being expressed. Yesterday, I saw a statement jointly issued by the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Elliot Engel, and Congressman McCall, expressing their concern over the situation on continuous repression in Kashmir. We also saw the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee speak about the atrocities, and a number of other congressmen and representatives and senators, Senator Nagi Hassan, Senator Jean Shaheen, have also on record only yesterday expressed their concern. And this is, of course, partly a reflection of the concern that all these individuals who are invested in the ideals of freedom, democracy, and liberty have on the situation. But I think it is also a reflection of the activism shown by our community, by Kashmiri Americans, by Pakistani Americans, and by all those who are committed and are passionate about raising their voice on the, these egregious violations of human rights. And it's really, I think, it's very important for people here to understand. And that's why, because clearly, a year down the road, we see that there is no let up. So clearly, as Dr. Khan was mentioning, our protestations and our voice has not made the kind of impact that we would expect it to make in terms of forcing India to change its course. In fact, on the contrary, you know, over this 1 year, there is more repression today than it was 6 months ago. You know, and we were, and there was a legitimate expectation. And if India ever thought that Kashmiris were a part and parcel of India, then they would not have adopted the kind of tactics that they are adopting in India, in Kashmir. Look at the COVID situation. While the entire world and all governments and leadership in various countries are coming together to basically help their citizens in the ways they can to make them feel more comfortable and to address their challenges. India, on the contrary, you know, there are more people under arrest today than there were before. There are more people being killed in those extrajudicial encounters, you know, and in those fake disappearances, and the use of pellet guns. And some of that has already been enumerated by Dr. Khan. I don't need to give you those details. And then on top of that, you know, it's not about the you know, someone mentioned. I mean, it's not just something that India did to pursue the agenda or to deprive people of the territory. It is also an attempt to deprive Kashmiris of their identity. It's like the great state of Illinois, you know, being disintegrated into individual pockets by being given the status of the District of Columbia and taking away that status of statehood without ever consulting the people of the great state of Illinois. So that's the kind of, I think, understanding and recognition that we have to have in regard to. So it's not just depriving the people of their fundamental rights, it is also depriving them and the Kashmiris of their identity. And I think there are a couple of things I do want to mention. So I would like to thank uh, 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 all those who have contributed in keeping the flame alive and keeping the concerns active. And I would say that we still need to redouble our efforts, because obviously it has not helped in making India change its course. And United States of America, as some of the speakers have already mentioned, has a key critical role to play. And I think what is most important about United States today on the issue of Kashmir is that there is complete bipartisanship. This is an issue on which both Republican Party as well as Democratic Party. President Trump is on record to have expressed his wish to help resolve the Kashmir issue, and he has said it several times. The presumptive Democratic nominee, Vice President Joe Biden, has even their platform mentions Kashmir. And not just that, but also before that, he has on several occasions articulated his concern on the human rights situation. And similarly, in terms of co-sponsorships of these two resolutions that are before the Congress. And I think it is important, obviously, as a foreign diplomat, it is not for me to tell Congress how to do its business, but I think a adoption of a resolution will go a long way in conveying the concern of the people of United States to the government of India, and it will definitely influence the policy choices that they are making. And I do want to, since we are trying to, and I see that there are many people who have joined in on the Facebook also and are interested to understand this issue better. First of all, Kashmir is not India's internal matter. As someone said, it is an internationally recognized dispute. It is the longest outstanding dispute on the UN Security Council agenda. So when India revoked 370, when India revoked 35A, they basically violated international law, they violated the UN Security Council resolutions, they violated the bilateral commitments that they gave, they had with Pakistan, and not just that, as Zahid mentioned. Even Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, they violated the promises that their own leaders had made to the people of Kashmir. So that's the first thing, that it's not India's internal. And then to argue that these actions have been taken to basically advance development in Kashmir is, it is as funny as it could ever get. And this is, I always say, the sui generis case of development being delivered at gunpoint and to a reluctant population. And the fact that around the anniversary of August 5, India had to reimpose the curfew just to continue with that pretense of normalcy in Kashmir, I think goes on to say very, very clearly that Kashmiris have rejected their actions as they have over the last 70 years. And they are not going to accept it uh, in the next 70 years either. And it's not about, Pakistan or about India. It's about giving Kashmiris the right of choosing what they want to do with their destiny. And it is about them deciding. And that final disposition is what is promised in the UN Security Council resolution, which has to happen consistent with the wishes of the people of Kashmir. And that's the right of self determination. The escalation makes Kashmir a flashpoint between two nuclear powers. And that is what the international community must pay attention to. Pakistan has and Pakistan will continue to extend moral, political, and diplomatic support. Our commitment is consistent, it is unambiguous, and it is undivided. That our community leaders will continue to bring this issue and the atrocities in the occupied Kashmir to the attention of the opinion leaders around them, to the local representatives, to the state representatives, to the congressional representatives, and to the senators, because that's very, very important. So thank you so much.
From the United States, and good afternoon to a participant in the United Kingdom. On behalf of Ambassador Dr. Asad Majid Khan, I welcome panelist Honorable Congressman Steve Watkins, Dr. Imtiaz Khan, Mr. Javed Rathore, Dr. Sabur Javed, and Mr. Zahid Awan. Today's event has been arranged to commemorate and condemn 1 year of Indian unilateral actions in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which is a bid to alter its internationally recognized disputed status and change its demographic structure. These changes have brought chain reaction of catastrophic human rights violations. Expects that the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir dispute will get the focus it merits from the international community. Pakistan will continue to raise the issue of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir at every available forum until the Kashmiri people get their legitimate right to self-determination as recognized by the United Nations Security Council resolutions and as per the wishes of the Kashmiri people.
Next up, we have Dr. Imtiaz Khan. He is a professor of microbiology, immunology, and tropical medicine at George Washington University in DC. Dr. Khan hails himself from the Indian occupied Kashmir, and all his immediate family members still live there. Dr. Khan is the president of Kashmiri Council and is also currently a board member of World Kashmir Awareness. You have the mic, Dr. Khan.
Thanks for the invitation, and Mr. Ambassador, Congressman Watkins, and all other respected guests. Well, yesterday, 1 year of abrogation of 370 Constitution of India, Article 370 and 35A was abolished. And Congressman Watkins talked about the human rights abuses occurring in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this, I'm thankful to him and his team for the work they are conducting in a very honest manner, and really people of Kashmir appreciate this. August 5, 2019, 370 was abolished, 35A was abrogated. About 15,000 youth, ranging as young as 10 to 15 years, were picked up and lodged in various jails of India. Their parents don't know their whereabouts. Some of them are poor, they don't have money to travel to find out in which jail their wards are lodged. There have been use of pellet guns. Thousands of Kashmiris have lost their eyesight by using these by the use of these pellet guns. Hospitals have been attacked, doctors have been beaten, and people are languishing in the jail. Now, the question which Kashmiri people want to ask, including myself, why is international body silent about these war crimes? It is a question of human rights abuses, but only the abolition of these human rights abuses will not solve the problem. The problem will be solved when India is brought to the negotiating table and they discuss about the future of Kashmir, not a bilateral agreement. India and Pakistan have talked hundreds and thousands of, we held thousands of these bilateral meetings. Have been successful? Have we progressed by an inch? No. There has to be interference by countries like United States, Russia, Islamic countries, and so on and so forth, who basically prevail upon India to come to the negotiating table. India doesn't listen to the appeals. Just last year, Indian foreign minister said they were told that there were a lot of congressmen which have appealed to them to basically take care of these human rights abuses. They said, the foreign minister said, well, it is the constituents who apply, their constituents appeal to them and they issue a statement and we should not take this seriously. These condemnations and statements and so on, they are not taken seriously by Indian government. Because Indian government knows they will not have to face the consequences of these human rights violations, consequences of these mass killings, consequences for these mass graves. What will work if India is punished economically? Economic sanctions should be, then they will, because right now Indian economy is in downturn, is it in shambles? And if it is faced with certain economic sanctions, they will come to the negotiating table. There is Organization of Islamic Countries. They have to play an important role. 65% of the remittances of India come from these Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and so on and so forth. What OIC does, OIC is almost impotent. They issue a statement and they said they would like to send a delegation to Kashmir to see what is going on, and India refuses, and there is quiet. Absolute silence, absolute inertia. Organization of Islamic countries has to tell India, if you don't stop these violations and come to the negotiating table to decide the final status of the Kashmir, they will face some kind of economic sanctions. Then India will listen. I was very heartened to listen to the statement of Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who said that OIC has been going slow on the issue of Kashmir. If OIC doesn't respond, he will request Prime Minister Imran Khan to organize the conference of Islamic countries themselves. That is the right attitude. There should be a special session of Organization of Islamic Countries on Kashmir, where India should be told in unequivocal terms. Either it comes forward with the negotiations, release the prisoners who are in jail, stop the human rights abuses. Otherwise, it will face some kind of a boycott from these Islamic countries. India cannot afford that. There are only two. It has to realize, if India doesn't stop these human rights abuses, doesn't come to the negotiating table, this will have serious repercussions. Unless and until this message is conveyed in an unequivocal manner to India, things will not improve. Pakistan has to play a very dominant role. Pakistan has to have a national consensus on Kashmir. Pakistan needs to have a long-term policy on Kashmir. I'm happy that the Turkey has also, President Erdogan has called Prime Minister Imran Khan and President Alvi that it stands with Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir. They should form a coalition on the Kashmir issue and send their ambassadors to various countries, Islamic countries, European countries, and tell them what is the modus operandi, what should be the modus operandi, because time is of the essence. What India is doing, it is changing the demographic character of Kashmir. It is building huge colonies and issuing domicile certificates to thousands of Indians. It is uprooting a lot of Kashmiris from their houses. And the plan is that within a short time, there will be majority, Muslims will be in minority, so that in the long term, if the plebiscite is held, the decision will be in favor of India. So we don't have the luxury of waiting for years and years. We have to sit immediately and have these brainstorming sessions, how to solve this humanitarian problem. Unless we do that, India will go on with its nefarious agenda, and the whole Kashmir will face existential threat. There will be no Kashmir, which is it right now. There will be Kashmir, which will be dominated by the Gundas and the elements from Bharatiya Janata Party, who are responsible for killing thousands of Muslims in India. So we have to act. These kinds of token webinars and everything, this is fine. It is good. But it should not be on 5th of August. It should not be just on 27th October or 5th of February. We should have plans, and we should have time and assess how are these plans going on. Unless and until we do that, we will not achieve progress at the ground level. People of Kashmir have a lot of hopes from Pakistan. And Pakistan is an important country. And if Pakistan, just not by conducting rallies or just issuing statements, by action, by sending their representatives to European countries and other countries, show them what is going in Kashmir. Pakistan should have a Kashmir cell in each and every embassy so that they can educate the people on the happenings of Kashmir. The biggest frustration for Kashmiris right now is that you cannot hold these negotiations long term. Okay, let us talk, let us sit, and let us do after years and years, let us see what happens. As I said, at the cost of reiterating myself, if India continues with its policies, with its agenda, the situation in Kashmir, face of Kashmir will change, and there will be no recourse. And that's my strong appeal to the ambassador, to the foreign officer of Pakistan. As I said, in the morning I heard the statement from Mr. Shah Mohammad Quraishi, Foreign Minister of Pakistan. My heart was warmed, and this is the policy we need to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khan, for sharing your thoughts with us. Our next speaker for today is Mr. Javed Rathore. He is the chairman of Kashmir Solidarity Council of North America, which is an advocacy organization of Kashmiri diaspora. He is a very vocal speaker on highlighting the Kashmir issue. Mr. Rathore has also served as press secretary to the Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and he has also attended UNGA summits in the past. The floor is yours, Mr. Rathore.
Uh, Thank you, Madam. And thank you, Ambassador Asad Majid Saab, for providing this opportunity, and Consul General. And I'm very delighted to see my friend Zahid Awan, and especially the Steve Watkin, Congressman, and Imtiaz, brother Imtiaz. First of all, I would like to express my great gratitude and thanks, deep thanks to Mr. Steve, that he is taking a lead to stand for the people of Kashmir, really those don't have a voice. And as you know, that August 5th is a black day in the history of Kashmir, because nefarious government of India committed horrendous injustice with people of Kashmir. And it was not only a violation of numerous UN resolutions, but it was a violation of India's own constitution, Lahore Accord, Simla Agreement, and even a bilateral agreement between China and India. I would like to bring one thing in notice while Congressman is here. Why Kashmiris are suffering. As you know, that when India brought this issue in United Nations, Pakistan was ally of United States, and Russia was supporting India. And actually the draft of resolution which was submitted in United Nations, that was prepared by a US ambassador in Washington, UN, by the advice of president of at that time. And Russia always vetoed this issue because of Russian animosity with Pakistan, that Pakistan is have relations with America. So we have been a long history. Pakistan have a long history of relationship with with America, and that's the reason Pakistan is suffering. I think there is a 1.2 billion or 1.5 billion population in India, but 40% of population is living under poverty. When people those don't have a food to eat, they don't have a bathroom and basic facilities, how they can buy the American products? When there would be no peace, there would be no prosperity. So only hindrance between the peace in the Asia, in that region is issue of Kashmir. If America help to resolve this issue, and then there would be a prosperity, there would be a peace, international investor will invest, and only India will not be the only American market, but from Nepal to Kazakhstan, whole South Asia region would be American market. As the second notion is that India can stand with China. Let me tell you, if you see the history of India, Russia did a lot of things for India, supported all the way. But India never supported Russia and never sent a single person in Afghanistan to help Russia. So India is a very opportunist country, and they look for their interest. If tomorrow China become more stable, they'll not take a time to switch with China, and they will leave you abandoned. So I think that's very important. Instead of putting all eggs in one basket, you should build a coalition. America should build a coalition in whole South Asia, and the market will be broader, and everyone like America, though we are living on the border of China, but if you ask Pakistanis, would you like to go to China or America, 99% will say we want you to go to America. This issue is not only issues of Kashmiri. We all are created by one God. We all are one human being, and being a human being, we share the values, we share the miseries, we share the all problems. Like you see those principles and support those principles and stand for those principles. And I think if we do that, then definitely we can make this world a lot better.
Thank you, Rathore Saab, for your very detailed remarks. I would like to invite Dr. Sabur Javed next. He is an environmental scientist and education entrepreneur. He has been active in politics as a student leader, and now he represents Pakistani communities, including Kashmiri diaspora in the UK. He is currently Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Wolverhampton, West Midlands, England. He has been actively talking about the issue of Kashmir in the UK and Europe for the past 2 decades. You have the floor, Dr. Javed.
Like to recommend to the give the some recommendations to the United Nations and USA and the United Kingdom that number one, the United Nations should send immediately fact-finding mission to the occupied Kashmir to get the data and to see what's going on there. And second, the United Nations need to USA and United Nations both need to ban and declare the RSS as our terrorist organizations. If you can see right now, more than 10,000 RSS terrorist workers are getting training in military camps in occupied Kashmir. What type of training they're getting? They are going to involve in the genocide. They will kill all the innocent Kashmiris over there. So United Nations need to take action, and USA need to declare this RSS as a terrorist organization and to ban that one. So this they could do right now if they can't solve the Kashmir issue. And number three, they need to push pressure to India and lift up the lockdown over there. You see over here, we were just 4 or 5 months in a partial lockdown because of the pandemic, and many people, they are in a trauma and mental diseases and like that, so they can't survive, to be very honest. And you can see our Kashmiris are also human beings, and how they could face this double lockdown since last more than a year. So they need to take this step and to do these things. And number four, Kashmiris has already got the right of self-determination. They need to exercise that one. They need a plebiscite. So this is the responsibility of the United Nations to give them the peaceful environment that they could exercise their right. And finally, I would like to give this message to my whole community, international community, particularly United Kingdom and USA, that please don't do any business and trade on the cost of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sabu Javed, for your remarks, particularly talking about the environmental impact this conflict is having in the area. Our next speaker is Mr. Zahid Awan. He's a prominent community leader from Kansas, and he's a consultant on South Asia affairs. He's also president of Greater Kansas City People-to-People Organization, which is a leading citizen diplomacy force to promote different cultures. He has also worked as a journalist and has been instrumental in highlighting the Kashmir issue with local leadership and congressmen. I invite you over for your remarks, Said Saab.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Dr. Asad Khan, Honorable Congressman Steve Watkins, Honorable Consul General Javed Umrani, and distinguished guest, Assalamu alaikum. You have already heard the details of Kashmir issue, current situation, and proposals. I don't want to repeat all those, but I want to add a few things. When the Kashmir lockdown started last year, August 5th, Dr. Handu, Congressman Steve Watkins knows him very well, and we tried to approach different legislators, politicians here in Kansas and Missouri and around all other states. And Congressman Steve Watkins was the first one who wholeheartedly supported us. We also approached after that to our Democratic legislators. So our District 3rd Congresswoman Sharice Davis and Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver from the Kansas City, Missouri side. They also co-sponsored the resolution. So this Kansas is the only state where the bipartisan support to this Kashmir issue. We have the whole world arrayed on the side of the cause of the right and justice and morality. And on the other hand, you have a war machine, an arrogant and fascist state breaking its pledges, breaking its promises, and wanting to destroy the will and the spirit of people of Kashmir. I will go back to 1947, Mahatma Gandhi, who started the movement in India. He clearly said, if the people of Kashmir are in favor of joining Pakistan, no power on earth can stop them from doing so. But they should be left free to decide the question for themselves. So Mahatma Gandhi was in support of the Kashmiri people that whatever they will decide, that should be done. We believe that Jammu and Kashmir is not an integral part of India and has never been an integral part of India. It's a disputed territory between India and Pakistan, and it is more a part of Pakistan than it can ever be of India.